Howdy, gang. It is Friday. Time for a Friday show, and unfortunately, there has been yet another mass school shooting, this time in Texas. And I swear, every time this happens, it's heartbreaking, and it happens constantly. And I'm not even going to get into the whole thoughts and prayers nonsense. Things have got to change. They really do, on a societal level as well as a legislative level here in the United States. Anyway, even though it is a bummer, depressing day, let's try to lighten things up a little bit, at least for about an hour, just to kind of maybe put a little cheer in your life, because I don't know, the news is just really depressing today. Anyway, the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, gang. Yes, I am Jeff McAleer. I'm back once again, and I am your host here at the Daily Dope, as well as happening to be the Grand Poobah of thegaminggang.com. And I am not going to go into a big long spiel about yet another school shooting, because it's what's left to say, right? There's nothing left to say. It's just nothing's changing, and I don't know. On one hand, it's heartbreaking, and on the other hand, it infuriates me. So, I don't know. I don't know what to say. So, as I mentioned in the open, let's take our minds off of it just for like an hour. I'm not saying, hey, let's ignore this, right? Just saying, let's kind of take our minds off it a little bit and think about more entertaining things, more uplifting things. Anyway, so I got a big show today. So I am going to do a review for Remnants from my friends over at Fireside Games. So that is not available yet. It is on the horizon. It is in Origins Game Fair release for Fireside Games, and it will be in stores on June 27th. So I will give you the heads up on what I think of Remnants. Plus, I've got news as well. So it is Friday. TGIF, I've got to say, pretty big week so far this week. And for some reason, it looks like that video jumped again. I noticed this yesterday on yesterday's show when I watched the replay of the video. Seems to be like a little hitch sometimes when like the date changes, like when I've got the little icon for the logo, I should say, for the Gaming Gang, and then it switches over to today's date. Sometimes there's like a little hiccup, there's like a little bump in the video. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on with this. I'll have to take a look at it over the weekend, because that was not doing that for, I don't know, 100 and some shows. So, what the hell's going on now? Anyway, so I've got some news. Not a ton of news today, but I've got a bit of news. So let's jump on into that. And then I will once again mention the giveaway that's going on. It's going on through the 28th of the month. But anyway, there is a unique looking Euro game which is up for crowdfunding on Kickstarter. And it's from Studio Bombyx. I'm not familiar with that company. They are out of France. But I have the dope. Welcome to Imaginarium, the Dream Factory, a strategy and development game with a race to objectives in a steampunk dreamlike universe. Through the mist, you can just about see the gigantic form of the factory. This is where the essence of dreams is shaped. We will enter the factory through the grand entrance. Here are the famous machines. You can repair, combine, or dismantle them. They will produce the resources needed to repair more powerful machines. I'm sure that you will quickly make the best use of your resources and the space available in your workshop to carry out the projects of the design office and gain victory points. Created by Bruno Cathala and Florian Sirix. Sorry if I got that wrong, Florian. Imaginarium is a strategy, combination, and development game with a race to objectives for 2 to 5 players. Felitius Bastis? Sorry, I am way off on that, I am sure. Anyway, that is the artist. Brings fantastic animal figures together with the factory's steampunk atmosphere in surprising and daring illustrations. Daring? Why are these animals caught in compromising situations or positions? I don't know. Kind of seems strange. Daring. Anyway, during this campaign, the Imaginarium game and the free promo packs are only available in English. In the box, only the rulebook, the machine names, and the skill game aids on the back of the screens do have text. There is a Kickstarter video. It's only about a minute and a half. It's going to give you a much better look at Imaginarium. So let's kick back and take a peek. Strangely enough, the project for Imaginarium, the Dream Factory, is only about 33% funded. And it has 13 days to go. Now, I do understand it just launched on the 16th, but kind of surprised that it hasn't achieved closer to its funding goal, seeing that this game has already been out in other languages. And I should point out during the video, Smokey decided she was going to stop by and say hello. So Smokey is on my lap. All right, relax, kiddo. You're okay. Anywho, you can secure a copy of the game for a $58 pledge level through May 30th. Even though the video says, I think the video said the 30th. I thought the project says the 31st. I don't know. Now, I do want to point out there are no stretch goals for this project. There is the special promo pack that is included with it as well. If this does fund, you can expect delivery in November of this year. I have to admit, the artwork is really wild. It's pretty bizarre, and kind of like photorealistic almost. It's pretty cool looking artwork though. Have absolutely no idea how well the game plays though. Getting a little sip here because it is awfully dry down here in the Duct Tape Studios today. And of course, having Smokey on my lap is probably not going to help much. And of course, Pinky's down here too. There she is. She's chiming in. She's stuck down here with me. She will not be up on my lap, I can guarantee you that. All right, my next news piece is from WizKids, and they will be releasing a special upgrade kit for the Wizards of the Coast edition. Well, it's still Avalon Hill, but Betrayal at House on the Hill, and it's coming in September, and I've got a little bit of dope. The Betrayal at House on the Hill upgrade kit features a full set of 6 double-sided character cards with built-in dials to make it easier for players to track the ever-changing attributes of their characters. The cards also sport all new artwork depicting the characters from the base game. Hold on there, Smokey. No, I got that game all set up on that table there. You are not jumping up on the table next to us, okay? Yeah, yes, little sweetie. Yes, little sweetie. See, there she is. She's a good cat. Smokey's a good cat. I have had Smokey for about 6 years. Smokey is my cat. Pinky is not my cat. She's my cat, though. Anywho, all right. In addition to the character cards, the upgrade kit also includes a set of 8 premium dice for use with the game. The dice are molded in a green pearlescent plastic with bright yellow pips. Ooh. The MSRP for the upgrade kit will be $14.99 when it arrives in September. Now, supposedly, Wizards of the Coast is planning on releasing a Legacy-style version of the game later on this year. I have to laugh because I always kind of make fun of this game because it's Betrayal at House on the Hill. Wouldn't it be Betrayal at the House on the Hill? I don't know. Honestly, is this game that popular that there's an upgrade kit coming for it? I don't know. I have never played it. I have never played the original edition of it. I have not played the kind of reboot of it that came out about 3 years ago? About 3 years ago, I think. I do know people who have played it, and they're basically like, yeah, it's all right. Nothing fantastic. So I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be a big deal with this upgrade kit, I should say. All right, you're leaving, Smokes? Oh no, you're just moving. Oh yeah, now you're leaving. Okay. I thought you were just changing positions. Hey, it's a live show. What can I tell you? Cat jumps on my lap, up on my lap. Nothing I can do about it. All right. Anyway, I talked about the starter kit that's coming for Star Trek Adventures from Modiphius Entertainment yesterday, and I had happened to mention that there is a 3-part campaign included in this starter set that sounds pretty cool, and it's to help introduce players to the different game mechanics of Star Trek Adventures. So I understand this was originally available as a promo for people who pre-ordered the physical book. I think it was the physical core book for Star Trek Adventures. This is also going to be included in the starter set. And folks out there might be wondering about A Star Beyond the Stars being available for folks who A, did not pre-order the physical book, and B, don't want the starter set because they picked up all these other goodies already for Star Trek Adventures. Well, you're in luck because the PDF for A Star Beyond the Stars is available through DriveThruRPG, and I've got the dope. Captain's Log, Stardate 47515.4. We're in the remote Elikana sector, investigating the disappearance of the USS Alcubierre. After 3 days in this unpopulated region of space, we found a promising lead. Hours ago, long-range sensors detected a vessel and the presence of subspace interference. The ship is several parsecs outside Federation territory. The Alcubierre, I don't know, crazy name, pretty oddball name that they've got for the ship, was on special assignment testing new engine systems designed to exceed Warp 5 without damaging subspace. I can only surmise that something went terribly wrong with the experiments. This 3-mission campaign PDF is great for beginners as it guides the game master through the core rules as they play and introduces them to all aspects of the game, including basic tasks and challenges, as well as social conflict, combat, and starship combat. You do want to note, this 3-mission collection was originally offered as a pre-order bonus for Modiphius customers who pre-ordered the physical Star Trek Core Rulebook between June and October of 2017, and is now being made available for sale for other Star Trek Adventures fans. This campaign will also be released, as I mentioned, in the Star Trek Adventures starter set. You can score the 3-part 50-page campaign in PDF right now at DriveThruRPG for $9.99. Sweet. Always on the lookout for more of these Star Trek Adventures because they only have the one volume out. Gosh, I'm trying to remember the name of it too. I'm zoning out. Oh, These Are the Voyages. These Are the Voyages, Volume 1. So, and then of course in the core book, I do recall there's an short adventure in the core book, and I think there's some adventure like hooks in there as well. I really think the Star Trek Adventures RPG is really nicely done. It's pretty cool. Very, very cool. So if you already have Star Trek Adventures and you'd like to get a nice 3-part campaign, I would think it's probably fine for those who already have some experience running Star Trek Adventures. This should be pretty cool. And obviously from the cover, either the Klingons or Romulans are involved in this. So I'm not sure when this takes place. I'm taking a guess. I think it's Next Generation. So I believe that might make that a Klingon ship. Anywho, my final news piece is a bit of bad news from Wizards of the Coast, because it turns out many of the limited edition copies of Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes that was supposed to release on the 18th today have a printing problem. And supposedly it affected the entire run of these books. I will show you my copy in just a second. They're saying it's the entire run, but I guess it's not showing up with every book. Anyway, here's the dope from Wizards of the Coast. We've identified a printing problem that has affected the entire run of Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes alternate covers. Unfortunately, we did not catch this problem until shipments had already arrived to stores. We are working closely with distributors and retailers to rectify the situation. The quality of D&D books and products is very important to us, and we want fans to be happy with their purchase of all our products. Our limited edition alt covers are designed to delight fans. We want you to be excited to put our alt covers on your shelves and to use them at your table. Sadly, we've identified that denizens of the 9Ls have reached up and ruined some of the shipments for the limited edition covers for Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. See, that's where we get the conflicting report. Starts off saying, well, it's all the books, and then as we go through this release, it says that it's some of the shipments. Anyway, it says, we've seen reports of scuffed, scratched, and warped covers. Not all the limited edition alternate covers illustrated by Vance Kelly are damaged. Individual game stores may have some copies available that are just fine. The standard cover illustrated by Jason Rainville is unaffected and is still available. Now this says starting on 5/18. I don't know if it's available today, because I thought originally the standard edition is coming out on the 29th. I thought it was the 29th. Anyway, we are urgently working to replace the affected books as soon as possible. Wizards will replace any and all copies of the limited edition book returned by retailers as soon as replacement stock is available. That means that your friendly local game store will receive the original number they ordered, but there will be a delay. If you end up with a damaged copy and don't realize it until too late, please contact their customer service and they'll work with you to replace it as soon as the replacement books arrive. They do say, we cannot confirm, but the cult Asmodeus may or may not have been involved. Well, I don't know. All right, so as I pointed out, I actually, in fact, I just went through showing the book off Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes on Tuesday. So this is the standard edition, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with this. From what I understand, the special core stores for Wizards of the Coast were the ones receiving the limited edition covers. I believe those stores were also receiving their shipment of the regular cover as well at the same time. I'm not positive, but I think that's the case. And of course, why wouldn't Wizards of the Coast do that? Because I guarantee game stores aren't ordering like 1,000 copies of each book, for crying out loud. So of course, to cut down on the shipping, combine the orders together. So absolutely nothing wrong with this. I don't know if these are now available for purchase in the core stores, in like the special level game stores out there. It's very possible that it is. Now, I will point out that I also have a copy of the limited edition, the alternate cover, and it is not scratched, it is not warped, it is in pristine condition. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this book. So, I do want to point out that this did come from the PR company that Wizards of the Coast utilizes for their D&D releases. So, this didn't go out in a retailer's shipment. So, maybe that's how. And I mean, I am seriously looking at this. There are no scratches, nothing on this book. So I am giving this book out. This is part of a giveaway that I'm currently running, which I actually wasn't going to mention again today. I'm going to mention it every other show. But because of that news piece talking about how the limited editions will really be now, because that book is not going to rock out of the printer like that. So there will be fewer copies of that right now. And I'm going to take a guess that I wouldn't be surprised if some folks won't purchase the limited edition, even though the book looks fine, simply because they may be worried that there's something wrong with like the spine or something like that, right? But anyway, I was going to say I'm giving out my copy of the limited edition, and it's pretty easy to get in the running to score a copy. All you have to do is be a YouTube subscriber. I do have to reach 1,010 YouTube subscribers by May 28th. And all you got to do is comment on one of the Daily Dope videos from May 15th through the 28th. Just, whatever, just a comment. I would prefer that it not be a negative comment, because why would I be like, yeah, you told me I suck, I'm going to put you in the running for winning the book? Probably not. Now, I'm not saying you have to kiss my butt. I'm just saying, yeah, just toss in a comment and be a subscriber. And as I mentioned, I must reach 1,010 subscribers, which I believe I'm like 40 away from. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Otherwise, the book's mine. All mine! I'm not giving it away. Actually, if that's the case, if that happens, if I don't hit the 1,010 subscribers, I might do a special Patreon giveaway. But I don't want to have to resort to a Patreon giveaway. Okay, so anyway, so that is it for the news for the day. Like I said, kind of slow news day. And if you're wondering what's cooking next week on the show, on Monday, hey, I can't stop talking about it, right? Monday, I'm going to actually review Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. I will be reviewing this on Monday's show. We did sit down and go through pretty much page by page of this book on Tuesday's show, and I will do a review. I have been reading it. I'm not finished with it. I will give you a clue. It's pretty cool, pretty interesting stuff. All right, so that's on Monday's show. I am thinking now, Free RPG Day is coming up next month, and I am thinking the week prior to that, I might devote every show of the week to RPG reviews. and kind of talk about some of the releases that are going to come out for Free RPG Day that you should keep your eyes out for trying to pick up. Like, for an example, there's the Warhammer 40K quick start from Ulysses North America. It's Wrath and Glory. I know a lot of people are looking forward to that. It looks like it's pretty cool. Looks like it's more than just your run-of-the-mill kind of quick start. It looks like there's quite a bit more to it than you know, like 15-page quick start. But there are only going to be so I believe 5 per box at participating friendly local game stores. But anyway, speaking of Ulysses North America, on Tuesday, I am going to review the Day 1 Adventures book for Torg Eternity. I am actually running one of the adventures this weekend too. So, because I really want to get the gang, and I'm going to run Torg Eternity just like so over the top, just wild. Because I'm used to running Call of Cthulhu campaigns, which are, I'm focused more on scaring people rather than like wowing them and like blowing people's minds with, you know, with crazy stuff. I'm more about, you know, let's turn the screws a little bit. As for the rest of next week, I don't know. There's a few things that are bouncing around. I'm supposed to be playing quite a few games this weekend. Fingers crossed on that. So, but at least you know what's cooking for Monday and Tuesday. All right, so I know there are plenty of folks out there who are catching the show because they want to see what is this Remnants game from Fireside Games. Yes, that's right. So, let me grab, I don't know, for some strange reason, there we go. I got it now. There we go. Ha! I wanted to bring up the box art for it. Anyway, Remnants is, as mentioned, from Fireside Games. It's designed by Justin DeWitt, Matthew O'Malley, and Ben Rossett. Hopefully I'm pronouncing Ben's name correctly. Art is provided by John Ariosa, Victor Perez Corbella, and Matuz Wilma. It is for 2 to 4 players, ages 13 and up, plays in about 45 to 60 minutes. That is correct. It is an Origins Game Fair release, as I pointed out earlier in the show, and the game will carry an MSRP of $39.95 when it arrives on June 27th to your friendly local game stores. All right, so I've got the game set up. Let's switch on over to the other camera. I'm going to move the box out of the way. And as with most reviews that I do, I'm going to kind of show off the game, kind of explain the gameplay. I'm not going to actually sit and go do a playthrough per se. So I know there are other folks out there who do really good playthroughs. So that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of like, why? Yeah, it's kind of redundant that I do it. Okay. So, blah, 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 blah. Just nonstop talking. Well, that's what happens when, you know, you're hosting a live show. I do want to point out, once again, kind of jumped in the show pretty quick, and that whole school shootings got me just irritated. But there is chat available. This is a live stream. If you happen to be watching live, chat is available through YouTube. It is not on screen. That's how I kind of keep some of the goofballs at bay. But if you got a question or you want to see something a little closer up for Remnants, or just want to say hello, feel free, chime in. I will respond. Okay, so Remnants is supposed to be a post-apocalyptic game. So what you're looking to do is you're looking to lead your survivors, and you have some specialists as well, into putting together the best compound, scoring victory points. The whole premise is whoever's got the most victory points at the end of the game is the winner. And you also have to fight off various different enemies in the wasteland, in the Badlands, and face off against a boss at the end of the game. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of show off some of these components. As always, space is at a premium, so I've kind of squeezed some things in. It's not normally how you would have the game set up, but at least I pretty much have everything from the game right here on screen for you to see. So first off, each of the players is going to get this card. And this is for it's their compound card. So this is their settlement. And on this card, they're going to be able to track leftover resources that they've got. It's going to track medicine, which helps you heal your survivors. It's going to have screwdrivers, which really, well, you can adjust die rolls with screwdrivers, but you're mainly going to hang on to those screwdrivers for combat. And then you're going to have scrap. And the scrap basically means any 2 pieces of scrap, you get to kind of cash in to get a resource of your choice, which I will talk about in just a moment. If you have an active bonus token, that goes up there for victory points. Like I said, the name of the game is victory points. The name of the game, when it's all said and done, is going to be victory points. Then, on your compound card, you also have a sequence of play. So it's going to tell you exactly, okay, so this is your game aid here. It's going to walk you through exactly what happens during each round or turn. I always say turns because that's just how I was raised. You know, Avalon Hill, it's a turn. But there are phases within I believe they're called rounds in Remnants. And there are 6 rounds of play. Cool thing I thought was each of these compounds are different. Little bit. So they had a different name. So this is New Eden. And it'll tell you, okay, so this is what you get to start off with as far as your survivors. So with this, you would get 4 survivors and a rummager. Then we've got Sanctuary. Hopefully a lot more friendly than the Walking Dead Sanctuary from a couple seasons back. So we've got Sanctuary, and this tells us, okay, you start with 6 survivors. I've got this set up basically for a 2-player game. So we've got Freetown. Freetown gets to start with 4 survivors. And the survivor counters look like this. There's different artwork, but just a character. And there's no special iconography or anything. It's just a character here. When you flip it over, it shows that survivor is wounded. They need to be healed if you want to bring them back to this side. If a survivor is wounded and they take another wound, they are removed from the game. So we've got the survivors. Then we've got the specialists. And I'm always mixing up their names here. So, for an example here, this is a scrounger. And this is a specialist because there's going to be an icon in the corner. So it shows 2. So what that means is this scrounger can actually, you can get one of the resources because you'll be getting resources by rolling dice. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But usually you need to match 3 faces on your 4 dice to be able to claim that resource. Well, this specialist here, if you have them out scavenging, you only need to match 2. But thing is that your survivors can only carry 1 resource. They can only carry 1 item. So what happens here is, for an example, if this is the only specialist you sent out there scavenging, and you get the 2 die faces, and you take that, these are the resources here, take that resource, you put it on here, well, then that means everybody else is regular scavenger now. You need to get the 3 faces to score that matching resource. All right, then we've got, I want to say, I think this guy's the hauler. That is the hauler. And it just means they're able to carry 2 resources instead of the standard 1 for a survivor. And then we've got the rummager. And the rummager does not scavenge. The rummager actually loots. So looting is done in the ruins of the city to get the medicine, the screwdrivers, and the scrap that you track there. So thing is, you may not necessarily get, so for an example, if you got Sanctuary, if your Sanctuary is your compound, you don't have any specialists. Now you can always get more survivors, and you can always train your survivors to become specialists as well. All right, so taking a look around, this is kind of the main board here. So up on top, we've got the, oh my gosh, now I'm zoning out on it. It's Dread track. It's like I couldn't think of Dread. It's the Judge Dredd track, right? So he's in the blasted earth, right? He's in the wasted earth. What was it? Cursed Earth. That was it. He was in the Cursed Earth. One of my favorite Judge Dredd story arcs from years and years and years ago. So, of course, if you're a fan of, like, you know, Mad Max movies, post-apocalyptic, like the old Car Wars supplement, which was like low tech, where everybody's driving around with these, you know, motorcycles and trucks and cars that all have, you know, all this bunch of busted up metal, like as spikes and things like that. That is kind of the graphical look of this game. So you are basically one of these groups of survivors, your tribe, your clan. So one thing I will point out that some folks will probably be a bit disappointed with in Remnants is you do not fight each other. There is no conflict between the players. And I didn't really have a problem with that. Yeah, to me, it doesn't really matter. I guess it would have been cool if you could have, like, you know, given a little, take a little of that. Guide player to my right or player to my left, whatever. But I didn't find that to be a big deal. One of the gang was like, yeah, I wish we could fight each other. And it's like, well, we're busy prepping for the baddies heading our way and the bad things that happen in the Badlands. So anyway, so we've got this Dread track, and as I mentioned before, the game is going to last 6 rounds. And every round, you're going to move your little cube here on the Dread track one more. So you see there's like a red kind of like bang symbol up here. That means there's going to be a fight. So for 2 of the rounds, 2 of the fight, you know, combat rounds, you're taking on lesser enemies. So you might be taking on like radioactive wolves, you might be taking on raiders. I am not going to reveal a lot of stuff because I want people, when they play the game, to be surprised, right? So I'm not going to sit and look through. I mean, I did the unboxing in the first look. We looked at some of the cards. But once again, even in that situation, I didn't want to spoil some of the surprises, right? So anyway, so we've got this Dread track. This Dread track's going to move along. So every other round, there will be a fight. So you need to kind of prepare yourself for the upcoming fight. And here we show this is going to be the enemy that we're going to fight in this round, the round after the first round. So 2nd, 3rd, 6th. So the 6th round is a final boss. So the way the game works is you do reveal the enemy that you are going to fight ahead of time. All right, so then we've got a Badlands deck. And every turn you are going to reveal a Badlands card to find out, okay, so what happens with your survivors that you send out? Could be something bad, might be something good. Usually it's not so good. so that's random. It's kind of a small deck. Then we've got bonus areas on the board. And let's zoom in a little. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Just kind of, there we go. So up here we got this bonus token. And there are actually 4 bonus locations on the board. So there's 1 here, there's 2 further down here. And what you'll do is you'll take the number of players and subtract 1. So if you're playing 2 players, see it says bonus 2, you're going to put 1 bonus token, and you've got some other bonus tokens here. And you flip it face up. So the players know what the bonus token is. Now, if I were playing a 4-player game, there'd be those, I'd have 2 more of these tokens, which I would flip up and place out here. One interesting thing about the bonus tokens, now there's I think there's only 1. Let me double check. No. Okay. I could have swore there was a bonus token for extra victory points at the end of the game, but I guess I'm wrong. Anyway, let's double check in the rulebook. Now the rulebook is not real long. There's a cool quick start on the back to kind of get you going. I got to be honest, I had to read the rules. Then again, I'm one of these people who I'm sort of like, yeah. I want to know like everything about everything in the game. Let's take a peek here. It'll show us the bonus tokens. Now, weird. Okay. I don't know. I have no idea why I was thinking there was a bonus token that provided a couple of extra victory points at the end. I don't know. I'm crazy. I'm losing it. Anyway, all right. So, I got this rule book in my hand. Pretty short. Lots of illustrations. Telling you how everything works. And this is not a difficult game to figure out. Pretty easy. And everything is really, honestly, everything's pretty much laid out right there in the order of play section on the compound cards. Only thing we ever had to really take a peek at was like some of the tokens. Oh, what does that token mean? So that was it. And eventually, I mean, there aren't that many different icons. So it's like with the bonus tokens here. So, you know, after playing a few times, it's like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the wild resource. Yeah, I get it. Okay, that's what that one is. Okay, so anyway, so like I said, this is kind of the main board here. So you're going to have resources. So what you're going to do is you have wood, cloth. Okay, so this is wood. That is wood. We got cloth. We have plastic, which I sort of have to laugh because it's kind of like a crushed soda bottle. We got rope. And then we have metal. So, the first phase of the game, you'll be sending your survivors out to either scavenge or loot. Okay, so then we've got dice. Each of the players get 4 dice, and you'll notice we've got rope, we've got wood, we've got metal, we have plastic, we've got cloth, and then we've got a star. So what the star represents is the bonus. So if you get 3 stars in your roll, you're able to take that bonus token. The dice are basically, I don't want to say it's really push your luck, because it's not like you roll your dice and you're like, oh, well, crap, I don't get anything. No, you're going to sit there and everybody's rolling their dice at the same time, and you're trying to get 3 of a specific kind. So you can set aside and keep whatever dice you want and continue re-rolling the other dice. Let's say I really want that rope. I want that rope. Give me the rope. There we go. At that point, when I get to that, I could take one of these rope resources. So the area here on the board is going to have as many resources, as many of each resource as there are players. So in a 2-player game, I'm going to put 2 pieces of rope, 2 pieces of metal, 2 pieces of wood, so on and so forth. Each of your survivors can carry one resource, except for this guy here, or gal, because they have guys and gals, who has that 2 icon. That means they get to carry 2. They're beefy. They can, I can carry 2 resources. So, anyway, all right. So that's the resources there. Showed you the dice. Then we've got, now I already put a boss out here. So there's already a boss. So you've got 2 different bosses left. So there's 3 in the game. I already have 1 there. 2 more bosses. Now, depending on how difficult you want to make the boss gets a power-up card. And if you want to go make it a little bit easier, you use a level 1. If you want to make it more difficult, you can use a level 2. There's also level 3. So there's 2 cards of each for each level. So there's the 3 levels plus those 2 bosses. Then we've got these dread cards, level 1 and 2. Now, we had the gliders. These are the bad guys. These are raiders coming in, attacking our compound using gliders. So those are actually from the dread card deck. Not a ton of cards. There's 3 of each level. So you basically have level 1, level 2, and then the boss fight. That's how that pretty much breaks down. And the boss will have one of these power-up cards. So, as I had mentioned, you're going to be building up your compound. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, we've got these different developments. So let's zoom back out. So, as I mentioned before, because space is at a premium, I've got stuff crammed in here. But you would have development level 1, development 2, development 3. So we've got these decks of cards. Development 1 cards are less powerful or less valuable than development 2. Development 2 cards are obviously going to be less expensive and less valuable or less effective than development 3. So you basically will have kind of like a marketplace for these cards. So you're going to have 3 development 1s, 3 development 2, 3 development 3. So the second phase of the game is the build phase, and that's when you're going to be spending those resources that you sent your scavengers out for on these development cards. Now, while rolling your dice is all simultaneous with all the players, the other aspects of the game round, the other phases, are not. They do not all run at the same time. You will take turns. This is the first player marker. So you just toss that over by whoever's going to be the first player, and each round it's going to move to the next player around the table. So everybody's going to get a chance of being the first player, at least for 1 round. So what'll happen is you'll be able to spend your resources on these additions to your compound. So for an example, we see netting. Well, netting requires 1 rope and 1 cloth. And it says it's a defense card, if you look right there. So you're going to have defense, you're going to have weapons, and you're also going to have special cards. So it says it provides us with 1 defense, 1 shield. So it's showing a shield. And then it says discard to cancel loss effect. So if you lose something, you could actually sit there and discard this card and avoid that result of an event or of a bad guy, what have you. So here's another example. So this is a grove. So the grove requires 1 metal, 1 cloth, and then when we see that asterisk, that means that it's kind of wild. It can be any other resource. So we could get this grove, and this grove is a special card. And what that means is if we have this grove, we can actually utilize it So we turn it 90 degrees. We can utilize this during our build phase and get a wood as a resource. We can get an extra wood. Now, we see that little icon to the right. Now, I have to laugh because I thought it's a beer bottle, right? So, like, yeah, the victory points are beer bottles. It's like, yeah, all right. It's Miller time. Yeah, we just fought off these raiders. We were able to beat the big boss. Cracking open a, well, it's not going to be ice cold. You're in the desert. You don't really have electricity. Gonna crack open a hot beer and celebrate. No, it's not a beer. It's supposed to be a ketchup packet. Is what it is. It's a ketchup packet. Which, as I look at it, it's like, yes, okay, so I see it's a packet and it's a ketchup bottle on the packet. So I'm like, yeah, okay. But for an example, okay, so we've got the tavern, right? So this is a development too. Obviously, people who know me know that I will build the tavern. Doesn't matter, regardless, I need to have a tavern in my compound. Come on, it's obvious. I just said I thought that victory point icon was a bottle of beer. So, but it tells you this is a special card. This is what it does. So, of course, these are all out here randomly. So you've got the 1, 2, and 3. And then if somebody purchases one of these developments, then you'll replace it from the deck. So for an example, as the first player here, let's say they bought the Grove, you would flip over the top card and then replace it. There are weapons, and the weapons have a fist icon because when you're fighting, you are going to need some way of fighting back against these bad guys. So that is pretty much, yeah, those are all the components and everything. So how do we play the game? Okay, so first off, and I will say, okay, we've got Freetown, we've got Asheville. They'll never take our Freetown! So we've got Freetown here, and each of the players in the scavenge phase, they're going to decide, okay, so who am I sending out to scavenge and who am I sending out to loot? Because there's a difference. Scavenge is going to get you these resources here. Loot is going to get you the medicine, the screwdrivers, and the scrap. So, as an example here, I would no doubt be sending him out to scavenge because I only need to match 2 dice to be able to get a resource, a matching resource. So, in order to do this, normally what you would do, each of the players is going to take the survivors that are going to scavenge, and they would put them along the desert part of the board. Seeing that I've got everything crammed in, I could say, oh, well, we're going to just put them, like, on the desert or whatever. But usually what you want to do is you want to kind of have them in a row. Because as I mentioned before, you're able to, each of your survivors, except for the hauler, are able to carry 1 resource. So you want to have them in a row. You don't want to have, you don't want to have them stacked, because then when you get the resource, you just put it on top of the scavenger. So once you have gone and each of your scavengers has a resource, more often than not, you're going to be done. You don't need to roll any dice anymore. Now, the problem is that when people are rolling dice, remember you got that bonus. And the bonuses are use it or lose it. So you don't get to save these bonuses. You got to spend them when you get the bonus. And then, of course, you put a new random bonus into the bonus spot. And the bonus is revealed. You know what the bonus is. If somebody rolls 3 stars, they get to take the bonus. When all bonuses are gone, so in a 2-player game, when that 1 bonus is gone, that's it. Nobody else is rolling any dice. So the player who did not get that bonus is done rolling dice, and it doesn't matter if they've got one resource or two resources. Let's say they got the 3 out here. They're done. Now, what'll happen though is once that bonus is gone, then the other players who did not get the bonus, if they still have the ability to take a resource, they're able to take a resource of their choice and take that with them. But it's possible that somebody can right away roll this, grab that bonus, and the other person, other player or players have not gotten anything done. They haven't got any resources. It can happen. I have to be honest, I'm not super keen on everybody's rolling their dice at the same time, and I will talk about that in my final notes about Remnants. So, okay, so that is your scavenging phase. So let's say, as an example, I was able to get, let's go cloth, metal, and rope. And why did I just take those off of the supplies? Duh. Should have been like that. Should be like this. So let's say those were the 3 I sent out. I sent them out to do the scavenging. I've got 2 players, or 2 survivors, I should say, who are off, who are going to be looting, which I'll get to in just a sec. So let's say for the other player here in Asheville, let's say they got the other cloth, plastic, metal, and a rope. Well, we'll say they sent out 4 to go scavenge, and they've got one character, which actually you would end up putting this character out to loot because they're a rummager and they get an additional 1 to their looting roll. So what happens when you loot is you're going to roll a die for each looter that you sent out. So we've got, the Freetown player sent these 2 out, and that means you would roll 2 dice. Now the kind of cool thing about these dice, they not only have these icons on the faces, there are also pips on the die. If you look closer, pinky enough. My goodness, you haven't stopped. Yes, I know. Relax. I don't know what's with her lately. She's just constantly going on and on. She wants to be upstairs relaxing on the couch, but she can't be trusted by herself upstairs, so that's why I bring her down. Smokey's zonked out. I'm sure she's sleeping. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, so you'll see there's also pips on the die. So for an example, the metal has 3 pips. So you've got 1, 2, or 3 pips on these dice. So when you roll these, so for an example, let's say I had these 2 looters for the Freetown, I would actually get 3. I get 3 items. And you get to choose. What do you want? What do you want? Medicine? Do you want the screwdrivers? Or do you want the scrap? So you track that on here. So I'd say, okay, so I'm going to go with 1 of each. I do want to point out, though, with the medicine, I'm not sure if this was like a misprint or something like that, but the first one does show a 0. So it is possible that you may need to have 2 medicine to be able to heal your first survivor. I don't know. But everything else shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's an example. Okay, so that would be the looting for that player. Now, the second player sent out the rummager to do the looting. So they're only going to get to roll 1 die, but they get to add a pip. So they would get 2. So let's say they're going to go with, they want 2 screwdrivers because they're worried about the attack, the fighting that's going to come up in a little bit. All right, so then you would take, oh, actually, I'm sorry. I forgot one of the most important things. We're going to flip a Badlands card over before anybody gets to do anything. So this will tell you what happens out in the Badlands, out with your scavengers, your looters, what have you. So it says gain 1 medicine for every 2 scavengers committed. So this is actually something good. There was an oasis. Everyone gets the effect of this card. It is not each player. Everyone's going to take advantage of this card. So as an example, I had 3 scavengers here, so that would have gotten an extra medicine, and the player here had 4, so that would actually get the 2 medicine like that. So as I pointed out, these Badlands, I can't believe I forgot the Badlands card. And we're not even dealing with clippers in the Badlands. But usually Badlands stuff is not good. It's usually bad. So that's kind of cool. We got the Oasis. All right. So anyway, so as I mentioned, then you would do your rolling for the resources. Then you do your looting. Then any resources that are still out on these like numbered areas are going to get buried. They're going to put them in here. They're going to get buried. So basically, any unclaimed resources that, you know, the scavengers couldn't carry back, they get buried. And they will be available on the next turn. So at the end of the round, you're going to like reset. There's going to be a cleanup phase. So after you've done the scavenge phase, then you're going to move on to the building phase. And this is when you sit there and you're like, oh, okay, so as an example, I've got my scavengers here. They have a cloth, a metal, and a rope. Well, let's see. That cloth, a metal, and a rope, what can I get? Looking around. Well, I can't get a gate. Womp, womp, womp. Can't afford that. But remember that grove I talked about? So I could spend a metal, a cloth, and a wild. So the rope is going to be wild. And I now have the grove. So normally you would kind of put them like underneath your card, you know, below your card here. But because things are kind of packed in, so that's what, okay, so Freetown buys the grove, and then of course you flip over the next, Development 1, then Freetown's sitting there and they're like, okay, well, I've got my resources here, what should I buy? And they've got, okay, so they've got a rope, metal, plastic. Well, they could go with a work shed because they've got the... No, actually they can't. They don't have wood. Oh, well. I don't know. Well, okay, we'll say they get netting. Okay, so they get the netting, and then they would spend their rope and their cloth. And of course, when you spend stuff, what you can do is, to make life easier, is just put it back over onto here, right? Because you're going to have to reset this board again in the middle with the resources to start at the end of this turn to begin the next round anyway. So when you buy stuff, you might as well just pop it out on the board. Unless you come to the point where, say for an example, you use your scrap to get something, and if you put it back, let's say it was rope, right? Well, you're not going to put it there because remember, this is just a 2-player game, so we're only using as many resources as we have players. So you just go around the table from the first player on, purchasing the various different developments that you have to improve your compound. Now, one of the things that's important to keep in mind too is that if I buy something, let's say I'm one of the players, I buy something, that means you're not going to be able to get it because there really aren't duplicates throughout these different developments. So what's important when you're going to start scavenging is take a look at the developments that are available to you plus your scrap, because remember, you can cash in 2 scrap for 1 resource of your choice. So plan ahead. It's very, very important. And well, that is one thing that I noticed with some of the gang. They didn't realize. They were just kind of like, yeah, just rolling whatever's still out here, I'm going to grab. And then it would come down to the build phase and be like, well, really isn't anything for you. I guess you're kind of stuck. And then on top of that, at the end of your round, your buy phase, you can only save 4 resources. So eventually you're going to have more survivors, you're going to have specialists, you're going to be bringing in resources, and you're going to find that if you don't pay attention to what you're trying to do with your compound, if you don't kind of game plan a little bit, you're going to be out of luck, especially when the bad guys show up and you got to fight them off. All right, so let's get the plastic back on here, got the metal on here, got the cloth, 2 wood, boom, boom, and 1 plastic. Now remember, we still have this stuff that's buried because these resources will be available on the next round. If there's anything still buried after the scavenge phase, then these go back to the supply, which I've kind of got the supply just stacked over by each of these. So once we complete the build phase, every other round we're going to have a fight. We're going to have a fight phase. Fight's pretty easy. So you're going to have the enemy. So here we've got the gliders. So we look in the upper left corner, it shows 5. So it takes kind of 5 hits to be able to stop these raiders using gliders. They got a special ability. The special ability says, okay, it's going to reduce that compound's defense by 1 shield. So it's going to lose 1 defense. It's going to show, okay, so if we defeat these guys, we're going to get, it's on the lower left, we get a resource of our choice from the supply. And if we aren't able to defeat these raiders with their gliders, 2 survivors from that compound are going to get injured. You're going to take 2 wounds. How you hand those wounds out is completely up to you. So the way that combat's going to work is for every shield that you have. So let's say, for an example, the compound has a wood wall. And the thing is, each player has to defeat the enemy, right? So Freetown's got to defeat this card. Asheville's got to defeat this card. So for an example, let's say one of Freetown's developments that they've got is this wood wall. Well, we see it's got the 3 shields. We know that the gliders are going to subtract 1 shield. So we get 2 shields. So we would knock the 2 off of the health here to make that a 3. We would need to have more defense or more weapons, which have the fist. Let's see. Let me pull one out. Let's find a weapon here. There we go. So, for an example, we've got the pistol, right? So we see that pistol showing it's got the fist, right? So what that fist means is we're able to roll a die, and we count the pips on the die. So I'll give you an example. Let's say, for an example, that Freetown has the wood wall, and they also have a pistol. So the gliders would be down to 3 from the wood wall. Then we would get to roll a die, and we're going to count the pips. So we roll the die, and let's say, for an example, we would get the metal side, which shows the 3 pips. That would take the gliders down to 0. That would defeat the gliders, and we would receive the reward. Now, there's also a little indicator here. It's showing a 1. That's how many victory points we get for defeating this enemy. It's important to keep in mind, though, that if you only have these defensive shields, you are able to stop that attacker. So let's say, for an example, Asheville has 5 shields, but they don't have any weapons and they don't have any screwdrivers. They only have, well, they would need 6 because the gliders subtract one shield. So let's say there's 6 shields, so that would be 5. That would reduce that to 0. That only stops the attack. That does not defeat these guys. You have to have a weapon, or you have to spend the screwdrivers to be able to actually do damage. You have to have something outside of just the shields stopping these gliders. Now, what happens is when you spend the screwdrivers give you an extra pip to your die. But the thing is, if you don't have a weapon but you have screwdrivers, you can still spend those screwdrivers to give you 2 screwdrivers equal 1 pip. So you could conceivably be like, okay, I don't have any weapons. I am able to stop these guys with my defense. I spend my 2 screwdrivers, and that gives me a pip, which means we defeated the raiders on the gliders. It's not super tricky. It's not a tricky concept at all. It's just remember that you need something more than shields to defeat these enemies. You can avoid the attack. You can avoid the 2 wounds by stopping them with shields, but you do not get the reward or the victory points for stopping an attack. You must defeat the enemy to get the victory points. I thought that was a cool little wrinkle to the way the game plays, because it's it makes sense, right? Okay, so we've got all these defenses. We were able to, these guys might have been pounding on the walls all afternoon long. Couldn't get in. Just think of Road Warrior, right? Can't get into the refinery. So, they're just, running, driving around. They're trying to, find a way to get in. They can't, right? Now, were they defeated? No. Just avoided the attack. So I thought that was kind of cool. So then you've got that. Then once you've finished up the fight phase, then you have a healing phase. And there is a healing phase every round. There's only a fight phase every other round, but you do have the ability to heal your survivors and your specialists on every round. And you spend 1 medicine in order to heal 1 survivor. And as I mentioned before, if they take a wound, you flip them on over to the wounded side. Spend the medicine, flip them back over. Important reason you want to make sure that, especially at the end of the game, that your survivors are healed is you get victory points for your survivors and your specialists. Remember, as I mentioned, at the end of the game, it's all about victory points. It's not, hey, do we have the coolest compound and do we beat up on the baddies the best? Doesn't matter. It's all victory points. So you get 1 victory point for survivors. You get 2 victory points for specialists. So you're going to continue going through your rounds. You're going to do your scavenging. You're going to do your looting. You're going to do your building. Every other turn, you're going to do your fights. Every turn, you're going to have your healing. And then we've got the cleanup phase, which is basically you're just collecting everything up. You're making sure you got the scavenging area ready. You've got your dice. Everything's all set up. We got the new bonus tile, all that stuff. And you're good to go. We could put that off to the side. Now, if you're wondering, you're like, oh, okay, so everybody's got to fight these guys and they're worth a victory point. And both players, let's say, defeated these raiders. Who gets the card? How do you track that victory point? Well, we've got these counters here. got the counter. So we've got 1 victory point on one side, got 2 on the other side. So anytime that you run across something where you're getting victory points that aren't easily tracked, you're going to utilize these. So each of the players would get, if they fought those guys off, they would each get a victory point. And of course, like I said, everything's squeezed in here. You're not going to have everything like on top of all of this stuff like I've got it right now. So, all right, so you're going to continue doing that. Then you would have another dread card once you got to the 4th round. These are revealed ahead of time. And I liked it better not doing that. I liked it where we didn't know what were the bad guys heading our way. What was, you know, what was the next group of enemies that we were going to have to defeat. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to, once, like, so for an example, once the gliders had been defeated in the 2nd round, I would flip this over and say, okay, it's a war caravan, bum, 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 and it's going to reduce the defenses by 3 shields, and we know that's going to happen 2 rounds after our last fight. So and I can kind of see why you do that. So it's sort of like, oh, well, I have to account for that. Gives me a little more planning ahead of time, because you're going to get 2 build rounds before that war caravan arrives. I don't know. I just thought it was a little cooler, where it's like, man, we don't know who's coming. Just like the boss. I don't know what's coming, because once we would get to this point, and once either the war caravan is defeated or not, you would reveal the boss. And as I mentioned, you've got 3 different bosses. You should reveal the power-up card. If you want to make it a little tougher, you don't have to reveal the power-up card. That can be a surprise. But I did dig just, making it a surprise. We don't know who comes showing up, who comes banging on our door to mess with us. It does make the game a little bit more difficult, but not a ton. But I kind of liked how you were like, well, you kind of like, well, guess I'm developing my compound the way I'm doing it, and I'm hoping it pays off in the end. All right, so once you've done your cleanup phase, which is, like I said, you're just basically resetting all this, you're going to move on to your next round until we get to the 6th round. Got the boss. And of course, we're going to tell you, okay, so first off, okay, so we'll look at the power-up card. So grappling hook. So that reduces the defense by 2. So that was the special power of the boss. The boss is the Scream Queen. And 15. So we need to get 15 defense hits, all this other stuff. So once you get the weapons in that, the weapons are pretty cool, because you'll get multiple dice you're rolling. But then it shows you, okay, so what happens if we lose, right? That's what it's showing the boss, right? If we lose, we're going to see, you're going to lose 3 loot, and you're going to take 4 wounds. And it says, before fighting, wound 2 specialists. It's like, geez. So what happens is, when a specialist is wounded, they lose their special ability. So they just become a regular survivor. Survivors wounded don't really do anything, but they don't count. Anybody who's wounded does not count for victory points. You can buy survivors during the buy phase. So they cost you a rope and a cloth. You can take survivors and train them and choose one of the specialists as well. This is all during the buy phase. And it costs you a wood, a plastic, and a metal in order to do that. So there are times when it's like, oh, well, maybe there's not a development that I want, and I got a lot of resources or something like that. And you can go, well, I'm going to train one of my survivors to become a specialist. The survivors really don't have any effect on combat. So you could have 10 survivors, doesn't matter. It's just the weapons and the defensive shields, and sometimes some of the special cards. So keep that in mind too, because one of the players was like, yeah, I'm going to keep getting these survivors. And it's like, Yeah, but they don't help you in the fight. Yes, they do help you go out and get more resources. That is true. But it gets to the point where it's kind of counterproductive to have a bunch of survivors because you've been spending stuff that you should have been bettering your compound with, and you've been blowing those resources on just more mouths to feed at the compound. So anyway, so that is basically how the game plays out. When you finish up the boss fight, you have one more heal, so you get an opportunity to heal the wounded. And of course, when you have wounds, you can do it where it's like, okay, well, I need to give 2 wounds out. You can either take 2 of your survivors and give them each a wound, or just knock one out. It's completely up to you. You do it however you want. So once you've finished up the final boss fight and you've got the heal phase, so you've been able to use some of your medicines, hopefully, to heal some of your wounded survivors, now everybody tallies up their victory points. So the victory points basically go, you're going to count up all the victory points that are on the cards. You're going to count up your healthy survivors, they're worth a victory point. Your healthy specialists are worth 2 victory points. You're going to grab your little victory point tokens that you may have earned for different things, and you're going to tally them all up, and whoever's got the highest score is the winner. In the case of a tie, then you have to break the tie with a knife fight. So, no, I'm kidding. There's no knife fight. Okay, so there is a little bit of player versus player, but only in the event of a tie. So yeah, so that is pretty much, in a nutshell, Remnants from Fireside Games. It does take about 45 minutes to an hour. It's pretty much straight on the money. The quick start was cool to kind of get everything set up, but personally, it's not like there's tons of rules in here to read. So you want to check out the entire rule book. So, what did I think of Remnants? I've got to say, I like it. I do like it. It's a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. My nephew Cameron really dug it. Cameron is a huge fan of Hot Shots. So, in fact, I joke all the time when I'm talking about Fireside Games. Hot Shots has to stay in my car because sometimes when I'm over there, I have to actually bust out a game of Hot Shots to get some of the gang to play like a review copy game that maybe they're not like chomping at to play. So that's one of the games I can bust out. Clank is another one. Clank Deck Building Adventure is another title that I sometimes have to go, okay, if we play this so we can get the review done, then we'll play Hot Shots, Clank, whatever. There have been times when the game that they weren't all that gung-ho to check out turns out to be really good, and they're like, yeah, let's just play this again. We don't have to play Clank or what have you. But anyway, I did point out there's no real player versus player. Hang on, let me grab a sip here. There's no player versus player. There's no tribe against tribe, compound against compound. That's probably going to bug some folks, but that's why I said right up front, right from the beginning, that is not an aspect of this game. So if that's what somebody's looking for, obviously this would not be something they'd be picking up. I like the resource collection. I don't like the rolling the dice at the same time. I got to be honest, though, I'm not one of these people who digs that whole everybody's like throwing down things at the same time and all simultaneous. Because for one, there are plenty of gamers out there who are cheaters, who will cheat, and you're trying to pay attention to your own thing and then watching them. And personally, we were fine in later games playing Remnants where everybody rolled their dice and they said, okay, I want to re-roll these. Everybody re-rolled what they wanted to roll and did it like that. It wasn't everybody was taking turns. It was just, nobody was sitting there just rolling their dice till they got 3 of a kind. Or if they have the specialist, 2 of a kind for that resource. I liked it better that way, where we were all rolling, saying, okay, I'm going to re-roll these. Everybody re-rolled. Everybody was kind of doing their own thing. And we went in player order as far as grabbing the resources, which I understand that's part of the reason why everybody's rolling at the same time, because the resources are limited and they're going to run out. But it still kind of worked the same way, so it wasn't really a problem. Of course, you know, this is just my opinion. This is just my take on it. I just don't happen to be keen on everybody rolling their dice at the same time and everybody's focused on their own stuff, because people will cheat. In fact, we caught somebody who was cheating doing that. That's one of the reasons why I bring it up. And it was kind of like, really? Come on. Seriously? Like, oh yeah, I got this. It's like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You can't take that. You know. So anyway, I like the building, the compounds, and I like the fact that if I purchase something, you can't have it. So I dug that. I thought that was pretty cool. So I like the fact that you've got the kind of like marketplace. You've got the 3 different levels of developments. You've got 3 that are visible, that those are available for purchase. I like that because it gives you an idea of what you can plan for during your scavenging phase. I like the fact that you have to decide, are you going to send people out to loot, or are you going to send them out to scavenge? Because the looting gets you the medicine, the screwdrivers, and the scrap. Thought that was cool. Like that. I like the specialists. I think that's kind of cool too. One thing is the Badlands card, which I can't believe I forgot to flip that over before we did the scavenging round. I wish there were more of them. There aren't that many Badlands cards, so after you've played the game 2, maybe 3 times, you already know all the Badlands cards. The bosses, I'm okay with the bosses. There only being the 3 bosses, and then they've got the power-ups. It would have been nice to see a few more power-ups. I think that would have been cool. Now, I do know there's a promo card. I want to say it's a giant scorpion. Now, I don't know if that's a Badlands card or if that's a boss card, but that'd be cool. I guarantee this is going to be a game, if it does well for Fireside, that we will see little promos come out for, or maybe even an expansion with more Badlands cards and maybe more development cards, more bosses, things like that. But I do wish that there had been more Badlands cards, and I wish there were more Dread cards. So the Dread cards are those cards that have the enemies that pop up before you get to the big boss. There aren't a ton of those either. So I wish just for a little more variety. Now the game does have really, really high replayability because so many things are going to be different every time out. You're probably going to fight a different boss with a different power-up. You can even decide, hey, we're going to just randomly select the power-up out of the 3 levels all together. So who knows? Maybe it's going to be super tough, the power-up. Maybe it's going to be super easy. You don't know. So there's a lot of randomness. I know a lot of people who don't like randomness in their games aren't going to like the fact that you're rolling the dice to get your resources, stuff like that. But the reality is, they're not going to be looking at Remnants anyway, because it's right there. It tells you right in the sell sheet info what you're doing, that there is going to be random items with rolling your dice, who the boss is, Badlands cards, Dread cards, as well as what developments are available. Anyway, so I really like the game. 3 out of 4 players from the gang really dug it. One was sort of, but it was the person who was like, I really wish we could fight each other. And I was like, yeah, I guess. And then one of the players thought that everybody fighting the same villain, like the Dread cards and the boss cards, was kind of wonky. I was like, that didn't bother me. I was like, that's all right. It's okay. I mean, to me, honestly, it helps the game move along a lot faster than if everybody had to have a different villain that they're fighting. Plus, that wouldn't be real fair either. Whereas, you might have one player, they draw a dread card and it's some easy wussy raiders that they take out like that. And then the next player flips something up and it's like, holy cow. It's like it's the state of Maine attacking, Oh my gosh. So all in all, I really do like Remnants. I can give it a very, very solid recommendation. Just a couple of things that I just, didn't gel with me. I don't have a big issue with it. Just a couple of things that didn't necessarily gel, and that I would like to have seen a bit more variety with those Badlands and the Dread cards. That's it. So, I do like it. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would certainly give Remnants an 8.5. So yes, I think it's going to fit. I think it's going to scratch the itch for a lot of players who are kind of looking for a post-apocalyptic compound building sort of game where they don't have to necessarily fight against all the players. So one of the players was like, oh, that's kind of a drawback, might actually be a positive for folks who don't like a lot of player conflict in their games. So there's that. So as I mentioned before, Remnants is not out in stores yet. It is arriving on June 27th. Of course, if you are going to be attending Origins Game Fair, race over to the Fireside Games booth and see if it's in stock and snag it. And it will carry an MSRP of $39.95. All right, so that's it for the show. Boy, I told you it was a big show. I will be back on Monday. I will be doing my review for Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons from Wizards of the Coast. Of course, when you're not watching The Daily Dope, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a very safe weekend. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.